This will be for the Kuta software worksheet, medians. All right, so here we have a triangle and the medians are drawn in blue. So the definition of a median, it's a segment that goes from a vertex to a midpoint. So the vertex or the vertices are basically A, B, and C, the points on the triangle. And the median goes from the vertex to the midpoint on the opposite side. So it starts at a vertex and it travels to the opposite side to a midpoint. Okay? The way we know that point E is a midpoint is because it is surrounded by two congruent line segments. All right? And you can see that with the other medians as well. If I go from B to point F is a midpoint. And we know that because it's surrounded by congruent line segments. If we go from C to D, we know that D is a midpoint because it's surrounded by two congruent segments. Now this point P in the middle, where all the medians meet, that's called a centroid. Okay, so point P is called a centroid. Now, if I can give you a couple formulas that you need, if you go from a vertex to the centroid, that's going to be 2/3 of the entire median. Okay? So let's write that out. Vertex to centroid equals 2/3 times the median. All right, so you need to know that formula for this exercise. All right, so what does that mean? So if we go from the vertex to the centroid, that portion of the median is going to be 2/3 of the entire median. Okay, same with the other ones. Vertex to centroid, that's going to be 2/3 of the median. Vertex to centroid is going to be 2/3 of the median. Now, if I were to give you one other formula, I'm going to say midpoint to centroid equals 1/3 times the median. All right. So what does that look like on the diagram? Well, if this segment here is 2/3, the remaining segment is going to be 1/3. All right, so if you go from the midpoint to the centroid, that's 1/3. If you go from the midpoint to the centroid, that's 1/3. Midpoint to centroid, that's 1/3. Okay, so basically for the medians, the longer portion is going to be the 2/3, and the shorter portion is going to be 1/3. But these are the two main formulas we're going to be using in this exercise. So the instructions say each figure shows a triangle with one or more of its medians. Okay, problem number 1. This right here in blue is the median for all of the triangles. So that means GT is a median. Okay, so let's write that out. GT is a median. All right, and we said the median goes from vertex to the midpoint. So we know that point T is a midpoint. All right, if T is a midpoint, that means it is surrounded by two congruent segments. So FT equals TE. And if we want to fill that in, we can write FT equals TE. If we want to fill that in on the diagram, they give us that TE equals 8. Okay, TE is right here, that's 8. And since these are congruent, that means FT is also going to be 8. All right, they asked us to find FE. That's all the way from here to here. All right, so we know that FE is just going to equal 8 plus 8, which of course is 16. Alternatively, you can just do 8 times 2. All right, number 3, they want us to find LJ if IJ is 6. So we're looking to find LJ, and it's given that IJ equals 6. So if we label the distance from I to J, that's going to be 6. All right, now it said the medians are given, so we know that KL is a median. All right, and since KL is a median, we know that point L is a midpoint. All right, and since L is a midpoint, that means IL and LJ are going to be congruent. All right, IL equals LJ. Now, if those two are congruent, each one of these is going to be half of 6. So this right here, I'll erase this mess. This portion right here is going to be half. And this portion right here is also going to be half. All right, so if we were to write a formula, we're looking to find LJ. That's this right here. LJ is going to equal half of this whole thing. So that's IJ. All right, and we said that IJ was 6. That's given in the problem. So 1/2 of 6. Of course, that's just 3. All right, let's look at number 5. They want us to find ZQ if ZD is 6. So ZQ, if we go from Z to Q, that's that portion right there. Now, we said at the beginning that the point where the medians meet, that's called the centroid. Okay, so we can see the medians meet right there at Q. Q is the centroid. And we said if you go from vertex to centroid, that is going to equal 2/3 of the median, or 2/3 times the median. All right, so this portion, this segment right here, is basically 2/3 of the whole thing. So let's write an equation for that. All right, vertex to centroid is 2/3 of the median. So if we go vertex to centroid, that's going to be ZQ. And that equals 2/3 times the median, and the whole median is from vertex to midpoint. That's ZD. All right, and now let's plug in what we were given. We want to find ZQ. ZD is 6. So that's going to be 2/3. And they said ZD is 6. So in place of ZD, we're going to plug in 6. All right, now we're just multiplying fractions. This is a numerator and this is a denominator. So canceling, 6 divided by 3, that's just 2. Okay, and then 2 times 2 is 4. So that's it. All right, number 6, they want us to find RK if DK is 3.4. So if you look at DK, that goes from the centroid to the midpoint. All right, and we had a formula for that too. We said before, centroid to midpoint equals 1/3 of the median. All right, so we're going to use that formula. So this portion right here, DK, that's only 1/3 of this whole median. All right, so if we were to write a formula, DK is just going to equal 1/3 of the median. What's the median? Well, the median runs all the way from K to R. Or you can say RK, same thing, KR or RK. So that's times RK. All right, so what were we given? We were given DK as 3.4. So in place of DK, I'm going to plug in 3.4. And that equals 1/3 times RK. Now, we want to solve for RK. How do we get rid of 1/3? Well, you multiply by the reciprocal. Okay? If you take the reciprocal of 1/3, you just flip it and you get 3/1. So we're going to multiply both sides by 3/1 or just 3. Same thing. All right, so I'm going to take this whole thing and I'm going to do times 3. I'm going to take this whole thing and I'm going to do times 3. On the calculator, 3 times 3.4, that is going to be 10.2 equals, and on the right-hand side, 3 is multiplied by this whole thing. 3 is a numerator, and this 3 is a denominator. So 3/3 cancels, and we're left with RK. All right, that's basically what we wanted, RK. So they asked us to find RK, and RK is 10.2. All right, number 11. Remember it said the medians are given, so Fi is a median. All right, and that means point I is a midpoint. If point I is a midpoint, then EI equals IG. Remember, the midpoint is surrounded by congruent segments. EI equals IG. Now here we're given GE and IE. So we need a relationship between GE, the whole thing, and IE, which is just half of the whole thing. All right, so if you want to fill in on the diagram here, this right here, let me erase some of this mess here. This right here from E to I is going to be half of the entire side length of the triangle. And from I to G is also going to be half. All right. So now we can write a formula. We want to use IE and GE. IE is just this portion right here. That's going to be half of the whole thing, which is EG. Okay, so IE is going to equal 1/2 times EG. Remember, the order of the two letters doesn't matter, okay? If you have two letters, IE, EI, that's the same thing. All right, and now let's sub in the expressions. IE is x plus 6. So IE is going to be x plus 6, and that's going to equal 1/2 times EG. Use parentheses. EG or GE, same thing. That's going to be 3x plus 5. All right. Now, I know a lot of you recognize the distributive property, okay? We could distribute the 1/2, but I don't like to distribute fractions. I want to get rid of that fraction. So 1/2, the way to get rid of it is to multiply by the reciprocal, okay? And the reciprocal of 1/2, if you flip it, that's going to be 2/1. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2/1, or just 2. All right, so I'm going to do times 2 right here. And of course, you have to do the same thing to the other side, times 2. And what happens on the right? Well, 2 divided by 2 cancels. All right, and you're left with a 1. You don't have to distribute a 1, because 1 times anything is the same thing. Distributing the 2, 2 times x, and 2 times positive 6 is positive 12. Keep the equal sign, and we're left with 3x plus 5. All right, solving for x, you can go either way. I usually subtract the smaller x. So 2x is less than 3x. I'm going to subtract that. It cancels here. And 3x minus 2x is just x. Bring down the equal sign. Now, since the x's are on the right, I want the numbers on the left. The opposite of plus 5 is minus 5. 5 minus 5 cancels, and 12 minus 5 is just 7. All right, so x equals 7. And I think that's all they asked for. Let's make sure. Yes, they said find x. So that's it. All right, number 12, they want us to find x if TP is 2x plus 1 and TQ is 3x minus 5. Remember, these are all medians that are given. Okay, so since RT is a median, that means point T is going to be a midpoint. That means it's surrounded by segments that are congruent. So QT equals TP. All right, and we were given those. QT or TQ is right here. That's 3x minus 5. And TP is right here. That's 2x plus 1. All right, and they want us to find x. Just like last time, I'll subtract the smaller x. So 2x is less than 3x. The 2x's cancel. 3x minus 2x is just x. If we have letters on the left, we want numbers on the right. The opposite of minus 5 is plus 5. I'm going to do that to both sides. Cancels here. Bring down the equals, and 1 plus 5 is 6. Final answer. All right, number 14, we're given expressions for KT and KB. So let's look at, here's KT, and KB is the entire median. Okay, so KB is a median. And that means if we look at KT, that's going to be 2/3 of the median. Okay, we said vertex to centroid is 2/3 of the whole thing. So this portion right here, from K to T, that's going to be 2/3 of the whole thing. All right, so KT is going to equal 2/3 of KB. All right, let's plug in. KT is going to be 6x plus 6 over 5 in place of KT. 6x plus 6 over 5 equals 2/3 times KB. Use parentheses. And KB is 11/5 x minus 6/5. All right, now I'm going to do this in 2 steps. We can certainly multiply both sides by the reciprocal. All right, but what I'm going to do, since I see all these denominators of 5, I'm going to do times 5 on both sides here. All right, times 5. So on this side, 5 over 5 cancels, and we're left with 6x plus 6. And that equals 2/3. And if we distribute this 5 to both terms, 5 divided by 5 cancels, and 5 divided by 5 cancels. So we're left with 2/3 times 11x minus 6. All right, like I said before, I don't want to distribute a fraction. So since I have a denominator of 3, I am going to do times 3 on both sides to get rid of that denominator. All right, keep the equal sign. 3 divided by 3 cancels. And now we can distribute. 2 times 11x is 22x. And 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. On the left, 3 times 6x is 18x. And 3 times positive 6 is positive 18. All right, I subtract the smaller x. So subtracting 18x from both sides cancels here. 22 minus 18 is 4. Bring down the equal sign. X is on the right, we want numbers on the left. The opposite of negative 12 is positive 12. All right, and 18 plus 12 is going to be 30. Finally, we have x times 4. The opposite of times 4 is divided by 4. The 4's cancel. And x equals 30 divided by 4, which is just 7.5. All right, and they said find x. So that's it right there. X is just 7.5. All right, one more. They want us to find xq. And they give us MQ and XQ. Okay, XQ is this right here. We can see X is the centroid. If we go from centroid to midpoint, that's going to be 1/3 of the whole thing, of the whole median. Okay, so XQ equals 1/3 of the whole median, which is going to be MQ. So 1/3 times MQ. All right, plugging in, they gave us XQ is 2x minus 6. And that equals 1/3 For MQ, use parentheses. MQ is going to be 3x minus 3. All right, so we have a 3 in the denominator. You can do times 3 on both sides if you want. But I can see right here, these numbers are both divisible by 3. Okay, so times 1/3, it's the same as dividing by 3. 3x divided by 3. 3 divided by 3, that's just x. And negative 3 divided by 3 is just negative 1. All right, so we have 2x minus 6. And that equals 1, but you don't need to multiply by 1. And in parentheses, we have x minus 1. All right, the 3's cancel. 3 divided by 3, negative 3 divided by 3. And finally, solving for x, I'll do minus x on both sides. 2x minus x is just x. Bring down the equals. And x minus x cancels. And we want the numbers on the right. The opposite of negative 6 is positive 6. Negative 1 plus 6 is 5. So x equals 5. However, what did they ask us to find? They want us to find xq. All right, so we want to take that 5 and plug it in. All right, they want us to find xq. So xq is right there, is right here. We just plug in the 5 in place of the x. So that's going to be 2 times 5 minus 6. All right, that's 10 minus 6, which is just 4. So xq equals 4.